Okay, welcome back to Scratch Golf Obsession. So I spent $20,000 on alpha brainwave biofeedback training in order to become a better golfer. I've just finished day one of a 7-day training and I want to fill you in a little bit about the details so you can decide whether or not this is something for you or not. Now, the first thing I would suggest is, well, first of all, let's have a look at this. I've still got the sticky stuff on my head from the electrodes that were attached to my head, the back of my head here. So really I ought to go and have a shower and get them off, ready to start again in the morning. But what is this training? Why did I decide to do it? Why did I decide to spend $20,000 on it? And what's it got to do with golf? Let's see if I can answer them questions as quick as possible and then tell you about day one of the training. So I first of all heard about this training from a few people, from Tony Robbins, who's done the training. And for those of you who don't know, I worked for one of his promotion companies when I was 17. I did his firewalk seminar when I was 18. At the time of recording this, I'm just about to turn 47. So, you know, we're looking like 30 years ago. And I've followed some of Tony Robbins' work since. Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Executive. And for those of you that know, I run a supplement company and we sell some of Dave Asprey's bulletproof products on our website, aggressivehealthshop.com. You've got the likes of Ben Greenfield, who, if you're into health and wellness, you've probably heard him on podcasts or listened to his own podcast. You've got Bill Harris, who runs Centerpoint. If you've read my book, Aggressive Health, you would have heard of the Centerpoint program, using a technology to help increase meditative states. So, with all of those people having been and done the 7-day Alpha 1 brainwave biofeedback training course, you know, I thought to myself, this is something that I want to do. And the motivation was increased even more when I realised that in sports performance, before people do something of, let's say, sporting brilliance, in many cases there are bursts of alpha waves in the left hemisphere of their brain. Now, what's interesting is if that interests you even in the slightest, then my suggestion is that you go onto the website biocybernaut.com, because for free you can download Dr. James Hart's book, The Art of Smart Thinking. Now, I wasn't so smart in that I booked this up at the end of, it was either at the end of 2019 or 2020, but it was a long time ago. It's 2022 now, but because of all the lockdowns, etc., I couldn't fly to one of the destinations, either Sedona or here in Germany, Bavaria. And during that 2 years, if I was smart, I would have read his book earlier, but I wasn't so smart, and I started reading it 3 or 4 days ago at the airport, waiting for the plane, you know, to fly to Germany. And then I read some more on the plane, and then when I got here, I had a couple of days. I read some more each day, and I finished it yesterday before the training. And what I learned in that book was phenomenal. So if you're interested, definitely buy the book. What I learned in the book is that during this course, there's going to be a lot of work done on things in my life that potentially caused me pain, distress, discomfort, depression, you know, that caused me to go into, let's say, less than resourceful states. But why is that important, and what's that got to do with golf? Well, from Dr. James Hart's research, which he was doing this before I was even born, that's how long he's been in this game, people's ability to produce alpha in the brain can be diminished to the extent of which they haven't resolved underlying issues that they may have had in their earliest of childhood years or throughout their life. Maybe it was something that happened, you know, between the ages of 0 and 7, and they're not really fully aware of it, but it had an impact and it's sitting there in their unconscious, and still having an effect on their lives to this day. It could be something that happened in their early school years or in their teenage years. It could be something that happened, you know, maybe with a loved one or family members. It could be something that happened in their work life. It could be anything that happened that, you know, was an impactful event, which then has caused a level of stress at the unconscious level, and the subsequent knock-on effect of that is that it diminished their ability to produce and maintain an alpha state. Now, as I read through the book over the last couple of days, it becomes apparent that when you're producing high levels of alpha in the brain, it's very difficult to feel stress, it's very difficult to feel discomfort. In fact, more often than not, you tend to feel, closer to feelings of joy and compassion and love. So again, what's this got to do with golf? Well, by coming on this course and going into these kind of chambers, being hooked up to electrodes and being given feedback, and this is the most important thing, feedback of your alpha level, what you can start to do is figure out what it takes for you to increase that level of alpha. Different things that you think of, different people that you think of, different places, different situations. And also, part of the training is to get you to diminish your alpha down. So you learn what you can do to actually reduce your alpha. Again, through feedback. So there's no sort of airy-fairiness to it. The results are there, staring you in the face on the charts that they present to you, on the graphs that they present to you, on the screens that they present to you. But within this, again, I'm only on day one. Just finished day one, and I'm exhausted. By the way, I found it very challenging. You're also taught processes, because again, this is something over the last 50 years Dr. Hart has discovered, that when people go through very profound patterns of forgiveness, that as these problems begin to lose their energetic significance, when you sort of flood them with levels of alpha, then you can naturally produce even more alpha. And again, from a performance point of view, the more alpha you can produce, again, this is where it relates back to golf, then hopefully this is what I'm hoping for, is the more I can stay present, centered, and under the pressure of a competition with maybe 3 holes to go, I can maintain that level of composure that, I may experience quite easily through, say, the first 4 or 5 holes of a competition. So, am I doing this just for golf? Not really. I've been in personal development for, like I say, 30 years. When I started the journey with Tony Robbins 30 years ago, then I did hypnosis training, Neuro Linguistic Programming, Psych-K, if you've ever come across that. A multitude of different personal development, as well as multitude of different books. Asking It Is Given, Conversations with God, Seth Speaks. Again, the list is endless. So personal development isn't new for me, and all of that stuff has helped me start my own business, run my own business, write a couple of books, invent a little golf gadget, which may or may not be, you may or may not know about right now. So the continuance of this development, seemed to me like a wise move. So what did we do today? In this first training session, we went in and we discussed the protocols of the day, which are really about going into a big, imagine a great big booth, covered in all blue kind of silky material, hooked up to electrodes, a screen in front and a computer keyboard. There's a whole load of questions you have to answer based upon your mood, how you're feeling, that kind of thing. You get some baseline levels of your alpha with your eyes closed. You get some baseline levels with your eyes open. You go through a session of, they call it play, where you're just really listening to the feedback tones and then thinking of different things. So for me, for some strange reason, the first thing that came into my mind was a dog. I don't even own a dog, but I have friends who've got dogs, and I imagine a dog coming up to me and I'm stroking the dog and the dog's all playful and everything else. And I could hear the tones, the alpha tones in my you're getting the feedback. So in my brain, the alpha is raising up because the tones are getting louder. And then I start thinking about my kids, and my kids saying to me, "Oh, I love you, daddy, miss you, daddy," coming up to me, giving me a big cuddle, big hug. And again, the alpha starts to go up. So I started experimenting with lots of different things, lots of different thoughts, things that I do, people, to see, you know, what impacts the level of alpha. And you get like a 2-minute window of doing this, and then there's a noise, boom, and then the screen lights up and it shows you the numbers of where you're at and some colours, and you're looking to get your colours to green, blue, which are like higher than your baseline, and then if you don't achieve higher than your baseline, it's white, a white colour. So you're kind of going through, you know, experimenting, and it was tough because you're kind of thinking, and you know. And then we learned this particular process of forgiveness, looking at different areas, different things. And when they asked us what your goals were, and I was thinking, well, I'll tell them about golf, and I'll tell them about this and tell them about that. But then one thing that came to my mind was when I was younger, when I was 2, I was living in Canada with my brother and sister, and my mum and my dad. And then my mum and my dad broke up, and my mum took me when I was 2 away from my brother and sister and my dad and brought me to England. Now I don't really have any conscious recollection of that, but what I do remember is a few years ago, so I was in my 40s, my dad came to visit, and when he left, I had a really kind of uncomfortable feeling. And I quizzed him about it, and I said to him, what happened? Tell me about when I left and came to England. And he said to me, oh, your mum used to phone up, and she used to tell us that you kept asking for Adam and Sam, like your brother and sister, and you kept asking for, when am I going to see Dad, when am I going to see... And in that moment, I got remember, I was only 2, I got this like fleeting, like a flash of 1 minute being in this really happy sort of family environment with my brother and my sister, and this, you know, and the next thing, it completely disappearing. And it actually brought up some emotion in me. And I was talking to the guy about that, and he said, well, this is a really big thing. You know, things that happen between the age of 0 and 7, you know, can be very impactful and have a big impact on the rest of your life. So I then proceeded to go into the chamber and went a bit off script. Started looking at the whole situation from a lot of different point of views, looking at it from the point of view of my dad. You know, his son, me, 2 years old, is now going to go and live in another country. And I kind of had a bit more association to this because I've got a 5 and a 3-year-old right now. And I was thinking, what would happen if one of them was just taken away? It would be devastating. But then I started putting myself into my mum's shoes, and I was thinking, blimey, she's leaving her son and her daughter and taking me to England. And what basically happened is, by putting myself into each of these different shoes and the shoes of my brother and sister, is that there was just this, it just seemed like a world of sadness, like just horrible sadness, all this separation. And I'd never really given it any thought, because oftentimes the things between those ages you don't tend to consciously really remember. But inside this chamber, inside this sort of safe place, managed to associate to all these emotions, and then go through the process that we'd been taught to raise the level of alpha up in order to try and help resolve this, so that, you know, they kind of describe it like this. Imagine you've got a balloon, and that's your alpha wanting to rise up, but you've got all these rocks holding onto it. Well, the moment you can kind of like detach these rocks that are holding onto it, you increase your chances of your alpha level increasing. So it was quite a profound experience, let me tell you. And I came away from that feeling in a strange way, like a burden had been lifted. Because remember, like right now, I can see it from an adult's point of view. You know, well, obviously my mum and dad split up, so, you know, I can see the point of view of my mum wanting to come back to England where her parents were, but she can't leave all of her children. I'm the youngest, and the other 2 have started school, and I can see a logic to it. But when you're 2 years old, you can't see any logic to anything. You know, you don't have the resources to deal with that. And so it was quite a profound experience. And then after that, I went through a whole bunch of other things, just different things, people who maybe, things that I'd done to maybe hurt some people, went through some forgiveness processes with that, and bouncing back and forth. And then once we've been through this whole thing, and then looked at all all the charts and the reading the brain waves, and it was just really fascinating. And again, this whole thing went from like 9 a.m. through to 8 p.m. So it's quite a day. So yeah, that's day one. And right now I'm exhausted, but I thought I'm going to document this because there might be one person out there that listens to this and think, well, if it's good enough for you, and you feel like you've got things to resolve and you want to increase your performance on the golf course from a very weird kind of vantage point, this could be something that you investigate. And all I would suggest is, before you even do anything, just read the book The Art of Smart Thinking, because you might read that and there might be a whole bunch of things that make you think, wow, this is next level. And it seems like a lot of people say that. A lot of people that have done a lot of personal development, they come on this and they say this is the best thing that they've done of everything that they've done. So it does. I've got the feeling at the moment that this is, this really is cream of the crop stuff when it comes to brain development, because you're getting feedback, and there's nothing else that really can give you feedback about what's going on in your brain. So hope you enjoyed that, and see you for day number 2.